Good afternoon. It's time. And we have a quorum. And I'll call to order the meeting. If I may remind you, we are going to use the request to speak system today, so please do not change your seat. So if you wish to speak, then the Secretariat could rely on the system to register your interest. Now, before the meeting, the Secretariat has issued a notice to inform you that as at the end of the deadline, there is one valid nomination for the deputy chairmanship, and the member nominated is Mr. Edward Leung. He's nominated by Mr. Lee Chan-keung and seconded by Mr. Chan Hock-fung. In accordance with paragraph 8D of Appendix 4 to the House rules, if there is a valid, there's just one valid nomination for the deputy chairmanship, members may deem that person to be elected or decide at the meeting if there is need to elect a deputy chairman. So may I ask members if you wish to elect a deputy chairman? And also may I take this opportunity to thank you for nominating me as the chairman. So no objection to Mr. Edward Leung becoming the deputy chairman? No objection, great, because we do need a deputy chairman, so congratulations, Mr. Edward Leung. Now, Mr. Tang Ka-piu wrote on the 16th of May 2023 asking to join the subcommittee. Mr. Tang's letter was forwarded to members on the 22nd of May. It's paper number CB bracket 1545/2023 bracket 01. Members, do you accept Mr. Tang Ka-piu's application for late membership of the subcommittee? Now, he gave a reason saying that he missed the deadline for signing up. Of course, members know there is a deadline for members to sign up for the subcommittee. And of course, considering the size of the membership, we could actually accept more members joining the subcommittee. But of course, it's for members to consider. Mr. Tang's ground for not signing up in time is because he missed the deadline. So do you accept Mr. Tang's late membership application? Yes? Okay, then we will allow Mr. Tang Ka-piu to join the subcommittee despite the late application. Thank you. Well, I think members have received some information on items for discussion at future meetings. Any suggestions, please? Please also refer to the terms of reference of the subcommittee approved by the panel on development. There's also a work plan. Well, the documents have been forwarded to members. It's paper CB bracket 11438/2023. So perhaps on that basis, we could consider if there are certain issues we'd like to take up and for us to have focused discussion. So any suggestions, please? Mr. Lee Chan-keung. Thank you. Well, we're going to see different harbourfront promenades being constructed along the shoreline, from Admiralty to the Western District, and then in the other direction going to North Point and Sai Wan Hong and so on. Well, the promenades are being completed in phases, and so it's a good place for people to go jogging or just to have a stroll. And also there are spots for cultural and performances. So I'm all for the construction of the promenade, but then we may need to consider the facilities and the surrounding around the promenade. Now, the promenade, of course, is a place for recreation and leisure, but what about the public cargo works area? Now, because we want to extend the waterfront promenade, and then the public cargo works area may be gone altogether, and so it's about logistics, about the transportation of goods and so on. So what's going to happen? Perhaps it's only in the Shangwan where there will be one such a PCWA, and if that's going to be moved as well, then where will we have a PCWA in Hong Kong? Do we just rely on the one in Shangwan as the only one? Is it enough to cope with the demand? So I hope such issues can be considered at the subcommittee, that is on how we strike a balance for other uses along the waterfront. Then for the public to enjoy the waterfront, then we have to consider public facilities apart from the promenade along the waterfront. Mr. Andrew Lam, thank you. The terms of reference, there's this there's this term harbourfront. What is the definition? If we talk about the foreshore and seabed ordinance, so both harbourfront and riverfront are considered. If we just focus on the term harbourfront, which has a narrower interpretation, then it still covers 1,200 kilometers of shoreline. And that's an even narrower interpretation. That's the definition of the Harbourfront Commission. That's the harbourfront just in the along the Victoria Harbours. Now, I would prefer a wider definition to cover all waterfront areas, including future ones, especially including new reclamation projects, in particular the Central Islands, artificial islands, the Central Waters artificial island, that is. Now, my own view is that when there's no reclamation, then there's of course no water harbourfront. So this subcommittee should not deal with reclamation controversies, but then what will be the design of harbourfront in a reclamation project, and that is my concern, and I'd like to take up such matters here. And if I could pick up on Mr. Lee Chen Keung's point, now, whether it's the existing harbourfront or the future harbourfront, they serve different functions apart from leisure and recreational functions, because there are various operations along the waterfront at the moment. So it's more than just a design or planning issue. We have to consider the overall industrial policy, and it's not just a Victoria Harbour. Within Hong Kong waters, apart from public cargo works areas and other facilities, what is the overall policy? Thank you. Well, on the definition of harbourfront, I don't think we need to follow that of the Harbourfront Commission because they have their own terms of reference. Of course, I need to declare I'm a member of the Harbourfront Commission. For this subcommittee of the Council, well, of course, it's up to members, but I think we could consider a wider definition. It could cover what Mr. Andrew Lam has suggested. That is, if there are to be reclamation projects. And then on the use of the future waterfront, the planning of that, the subcommittee could consider giving advice on that. And then there are also land parcels along the shoreline, and what about their uses and the compatibility? So we could consider that too. Next, Mr. Chen Hock-Fong. I agree with Mr. Andrew Lam. Now, the terms of reference says that Harbourfront for the whole territory, so it's not just limited to the Victoria Harbour. And that means we're talking more than just recreational uses. Because as Mr. Lee Chan-Kung mentioned, there are operational functions, there are typhoon shelters and so on. So the scope may be wide, but of course, if we go too far, there's no point. We have to go to where there are people when we talk about Harbourfront. So perhaps after some discussion, we'll eventually have some consensus. Maybe we could just suggest a number of locations so we could be more focused in our discussion, and also then our discussion will be more efficient. Second point, let's not just talk about Harbourfront, but about neighboring sites or adjoining sites. They're relevant too. For example, Shatong Chui, the fruit wholesale market is by the waterfront, so it could be developed together with the Harbourfront. It could become a new recreational site with some operations. So we could revitalize such places as well. And then third point, terms of reference seems to focus on works issues. What about events and activities along the waterfront? We need to explore the management of Harbourfront Promenade. Now, I organized some activities along the waterfront. The Harbourfront Commission was rather flexible with sites they managed, but still there are many restraints. For example, if we want to hold a market fair, it's not possible because no fees, money cannot be collected. Or if it's a pet carnival, again, there are restrictions, so this cannot be held. So can we also consider such issues? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chen. So perhaps we need to consider near-shore waters, because some activities may be related to both the waterfront or some activities on sea near the shore. You mentioned typhoon shelters, for instance, and there are activities held near the shore. And there's also an issue with water quality. There were previous incidents, and it affects the usage of the waterfront. So next, Ms. Starley. I think our subcommittee should set a target. I have high expectation of this subcommittee to study policy issues relating to the harbourfront. As you know, I'm very keen to see a fully connected waterfront promenade. Now, on the Hong Kong Island, we're seeing good results, but apart from Hong Kong Island, the Kowloon and other parts of the territory, we still have much to do in relation to the harbourfront. So we need to set a target, say in a year, we could convince the government to set a timetable for connected harbourfront promenade, both on the Hong Kong side and the Kowloon side. Well, if we could achieve that, it will be a major achievement. Second point, in terms of reference, to review the conditions, to review all completed harbourfront development projects and so on. Now, to review the conditions of completed harbourfront development projects and monitoring projects underway, well, that's fine. But it seems that there is no concern about linking up the different segments of the waterfront promenade and so on. So for every section of the harbourfront that's not linked up, where we have to explore whether there is room to connect up to link up all these segments instead of giving advice on planning issues because that's too far away. We hope some land could be made available for linking up different segments of the harbourfront. There may not necessarily be in conflict with other operational uses. We're just talking about releasing some sites for linking up the harbour. On the Hong Kong side, we're doing fine, so I hope we'll see the same on the Kowloon side.
So as Ms. Lee has mentioned, the Harbourfront Commission has done a lot over the past few years. As Ms. Lee mentioned, in terms of accessibility and connectivity, it seems that the government can be more proactive. There are quite a number of issues interrupting the connectivity of the harbourfront and affecting the public's enjoyment of harbourfront. So in terms of the proactivity of certain government departments, we can be the one to spur them on. So the point is we have to set a target. We need to have a targeted timetable. For a lot of segments, the parts are still unconnected. So I have been a member on the Harbourfront Commission for many years. I have seen a lack of proactivity among government departments. So we welcome Mr. Bill Tang for joining this subcommittee. Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members, for allowing me to join this subcommittee. I would like to respond to Ms. Dari Lee's concerns. That is also a concern shared by the public. Now, we understand that in terms of the protection of harbour ordinance, the Development Bureau is studying a legislative amendment so that the harbourfronts can be enjoyed by the public more conveniently. So what will be the role of this subcommittee on the legislative amendment? That's the first question. And also the spirit is allowing the public to enjoy the harbourfronts more conveniently. So connectivity is crucial. So maybe we should set a target and we should have a map laid in front of us and find out how much of it would be connected in 1 year's time. We want to know in 1 year's time how much will the land parcel along the promenade on both sides of the harbourfront be connected. Are there particularly challenging parcels because of ownership issues and so on? I think it is very important to find out the progress. This should be our goal. We have to allow the media and the public to understand the progress so that we can monitor the government's work. So we should review the situation and then tell the public what's the condition of the harbourfront segments along the Victoria Harbour, and for those unconnected parts, when will they be connected? Taking Yau Tong as an example, the government told us that through land planning, the government has required the landowner or developer to create a promenade corridor. But if the developer and the landowner are not doing the work, then it will not be realized. So I wonder whether we can have a discussion about details like that. So I think there are two parts. First, on the existing harbourfront projects, including lands not owned by the government. We have to focus on the connectivity and the accessibility of those areas. That can be one of our focuses. And on a broader view, we can look at development projects, including Harbourfront's development projects under planning. So maybe we can have a discussion with the administration on those upcoming projects. And you have also mentioned the compatibility of different uses along the promenade and also the connectivity and accessibility of different segments. And then we have to focus on the different functions, including recreational functions and other public uses, and also uses of near-shore land parcels. So I think these are all related to the issues of Harbourfront. And there is also the matter on the usage and management of completed Harbourfront facilities. So after money has been spent on completing these projects, how are these facilities being managed and used? I think this is also a concern of the public. And these are all possible topics for us to discuss. So we have listened to members' views on possible topics. Any other topics? Deputy Chairman, Mr. Edward Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Maybe we can explore another area. So besides using Harbourfront for recreational uses, maybe we can discuss on how we can make use of the area to promote popularization of arts and culture. When we visited GBA cities with the chief executive, we saw promenade parks. On weekends, there can be arts and culture bazaar and markets where people can buy coffee beans and snacks. So this can help popularize youth entrepreneurship and arts and culture industry. I think Harbourfront is a good platform for that. Thank you. Any other suggestions? If not, then having heard the suggestions you have made, the Deputy Chairman and I will meet with the administration to further discuss the work plan of this subcommittee. We will bring up your suggestions with the administration, and having confirmed the work plan, we will notice members of the arrangements of the next meeting. Since there is a wide range of issues, we have to first prioritize some topics first, and you will be notified in due course. If there is no other suggestion, then we move on to the next item, AOB. There is no AOB. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.